I knew something was wrong the moment I saw him, alone, trembling, and too quiet for a man who had just returned from a dream trip. Mr. Taylor stood at the edge of his driveway, his figure stiff under the fading light, clutching a small, battered suitcase with both hands. The sight didn't match the image I'd had in my mind for 2 weeks, of him and Helen returning tan, laughing, maybe dragging 2 suitcases full of souvenirs and stories from the cruise they'd talked about for years. But there he was, alone. No Helen. No car. No smile. Just silence. I was watering the front lawn when I saw him, but the hose slipped from my fingers. He didn't look up. His eyes were locked on the front door of his house like it was some stranger's place. He didn't move to open it. Didn't even step closer. For a moment, I wondered if he even recognized where he was. My heart sank as I walked over slowly, not sure if I should say something or just stand with him in silence. "Mr. Taylor?" I asked gently. He blinked like he was waking from a dream. "Oh, hi," he murmured, his voice cracked and distant. I noticed then how worn his clothes looked, the deep creases on his face, and the trembling of his hands. Something had happened. Something that had drained the color from him. But I didn't ask yet. I just stayed beside him, waiting, for him to speak or to cry, or maybe just to breathe. Later that evening, after he had finally stepped into the house with slow, heavy feet, I knocked on his door with a cup of tea and a container of soup. He opened it with a hollow smile, the kind people wear when they're trying not to fall apart. He didn't say no, just nodded and stepped aside. The house was quiet, too quiet. No scent of Helen's lavender candles, no humming from the kitchen, no photos shifted slightly like she used to adjust them every day. Just silence, and one suitcase resting by the couch like an unwanted guest. We sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the steam rising between us. I waited, unsure of what to say. Finally, he spoke. "She's gone," he whispered. I froze. He didn't look at me. His eyes were fixed on his cup, hands trembling slightly as he clutched it. "Helen, she got sick. On the second day of the trip. It was sudden. They said it was a clot. Just like that." He blinked hard, once. Twice. I held her hand until she slipped away. In a place where no one even knew our names. My throat tightened. I reached for his hand, but he didn't notice. He stared straight ahead, still lost in the memory. I couldn't afford the hospital fees. Or the transport to bring her back. They said I'd need thousands. I only had a few hundred left. So I left her there. Alone. His voice cracked, and so did my heart. That night, I couldn't sleep. Mr. Taylor's words echoed in my mind, I left her there. Alone. The image haunted me. Helen had been more than a neighbor. She was the kind of person who remembered birthdays, dropped off fresh pies, and waved at every passing car. She deserved more than to be left behind in a place where no one knew her name. By morning, I knew I had to do something. I sat at my kitchen table, heart pounding, and opened my laptop. I started typing. A photo of the couple, one I'd taken during last year's block party, smiling, arm in arm, became the face of the story. I titled it, "Help Bring Helen Home." Then I shared what had happened. Just the truth. His grief. His helplessness. Her absence. I posted it online and watched the first few donations trickle in. $5. 10. 100. Then the comments started, strangers offering prayers, sharing the link, tagging friends. By nightfall, it had been shared thousands of times. My phone buzzed non-stop. Local news picked it up. Someone even messaged me from Helen's hometown, offering help with paperwork and embassy contact. I knocked on Mr. Taylor's door the next morning. His eyes widened when I told him the fundraiser had already passed $5,000. He blinked, stunned, shaking his head. Why would anyone do this, for us? I smiled, tears in my eyes. Because people care, Mr. Taylor. More than we think. Sometimes, they just need the chance to show it. A week later, Helen came home. Not the way any of us wanted, but she came home. The funeral home coordinated with the embassy, and her ashes were returned in a small wooden urn, simple, but elegant. The whole neighborhood gathered in silence as Mr. Taylor stood beside it, holding it close to his chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. We organized a candlelight memorial in the park where Helen used to walk every evening. Everyone brought flowers, photos, and stories. Even people who never knew her personally came, having seen her smile online or read her story. Children placed drawings on a bench dedicated in her memory, and an old speaker played her favorite song, Moon River, softly in the background. But the moment that shook me came quietly. A man approached Mr. Taylor, handed him a small velvet pouch, and walked away without saying a word. Inside was Helen's wedding ring. The very one she wore every day, the one Mr. Taylor thought he'd never see again. Someone had found it. Mailed it anonymously. No note. No explanation. Just the ring, returned as if the universe itself refused to let her go unnoticed. Mr. Taylor wept openly, pressing it to his lips before slipping it into the urn beside her ashes. She's home now, he whispered. She's really home. And we all stood there, under the soft glow of candles and stars, holding our breaths like something sacred had just happened. Because it had. A few weeks later, I found Mr. Taylor sitting alone on the park bench, the same one we dedicated to Helen. He looked different now. Still quiet, still grieving, but there was a peace in his eyes I hadn't seen before. As I sat down beside him, he reached into his coat pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. It was worn at the edges, like it had been opened and closed 100 times. I found this in her bag, he said softly. She wrote it on the second night of our trip. I think, she knew. I opened the note with careful fingers. It was written in Helen's neat, looping handwriting. She wrote about how grateful she was for their life together. How she hoped that, if anything ever happened, he wouldn't close himself off. There's so much good in the world, she'd written. I've seen it in strangers' smiles, in our neighbors' kindness, in small, quiet acts of love. Don't be afraid to let people in. They'll catch you when you fall. My chest tightened. I handed the note back, but he waved it off. Keep it, he said. She'd want you to. We sat in silence for a while, watching the leaves drift down like gentle reminders from somewhere beyond. And I realized something, Helen's story didn't end with her passing. It lived on in every person who donated, who lit a candle, who chose compassion when they could have looked away. Kindness didn't just bring her home. It brought him back too.